welcome to Nirmal Bang, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Hiral Tatia. We have with us Ria Singh, Senior Research Analyst, Currencies, joining in. Welcome to the show, Ria, and a pleasure to speak to you. Ria, overall, if you see in terms of the dollar index, it's pretty much rock solid right now. We have the Fed, the BOE, as well as the Bank of Japan meeting, which is slated in due course. What's the sense that you pick up ahead of?
Well, I think as far as dollar index goes, the rise was anticipated because, of course, if you look at the whole prices that is there into the economy of the US. So if you look at the inflation numbers, it came at an elevated pace on Friday itself. So this was what the after effect we saw on Monday and today. So after such, it went from 8.3. The US inflation went 8.3 to 8.7%. So that's a huge accelerated pace that it went on to, in spite of Fed doing rate cuts. So what the market is taking into its, momentum recently into the dollar index is that from 50 basis point that the Fed has talked about, it could go for a 75 basis rate hike. But I think after the inflation, even the 75 basis point is somewhat taken into account, seeing the dollar index momentum where it again tested 105 levels. So I think 75 basis is something that is already factored in. As far as 100 basis point goes, I think even doing 75 basis point would be very extreme, take into consideration the sacrifice that they have to do on the GDP growth. I think 50 basis will be a very prominent one because tomorrow is Fed rate hike, as well as the bonds are maturing. So there'll be quantum of 30 billion of bonds that will be taken off the books from the Fed. So I think going for such an aggressive rate cut, along with the momentum of the liquidity tightening that the Fed is seeing, 75 basis to 100 basis is somewhat very extreme. So I think after the Fed action taking place, which of course 50, even if they do a 75 basis point, it is already factored in. And after that, we are anticipating that dollar index will relax around from the highs towards 104, 103.95 levels and so on.
Sorry, so towards 104 to?
104, 103.95.
103.95
yes
levels. Okay. Moving from there on, how are you expecting the rupee momentum?
Rupee saw gap up in the yesterday session itself, but within an hour or two, it came down. I think if you look at the inflation numbers, even India's inflation numbers has been released. It has softened quite a bit. So from 7.79, we saw it softening towards 7.04 levels. So I think back-to-back rate hikes that the RBI has done is coming into effect. Now, of course, I think it will panel out like we had discussed that on a short term, it will test 78.25. And that was the view that we are going forward with. After the Fed, I think there could be a retraction of this movement, and USDINR could be heading towards 77, 77.70 levels. So I think the better strategy to go forward is sell on the rise for the USDINR.
Right. So sell USDINR is the best strategy to watch out for as well. Apart from that, how are you seeing the euro and the pound move?
Euro and pound have remained quite depressed. We have seen euro going from 1.07 to trading today in 1.04 levels. So the rate hikes that the ECB, or the guidelines that ECB came out with was not very hawkish, and this has what downgraded the whole euro momentum. There is no good numbers with respect to GDP or the inflations. There are a risk of Italy and Spain not paying their debt on time. So I think there is a lot of problems that is there into the Eurozone altogether, and that is what getting factored into the euro momentum. It will continue to remain depressed because if Fed goes with an aggressive rate hike or comes with an aggressive QT policy in its current, in its tomorrow's policy meet, I think it will definitely affect the euro altogether, the strength of the euro. Now, even UK's policy meet is scheduled, and after doing four rate hike back to back, there is not much of effect that is coming on the inflation, of course, because the major contributing factors is the food prices and the energy prices, which they were importing from Russia and Ukraine. I think unless that issue solves or they find an alternative to these resources, there is not much that could be done with respect to the inflation. And with the cost of living continuously on the accelerated pace, the FM could come out with some support for their public. So not much of strength on the pound altogether. So we are quite bearish on the Euro USD and Pound USD right now.
Okay. So overall, what are the strategies that you would recommend?
I think the strategies that one can go forward is going long into the JPYINR. Some, if you look at the intraday sessions, there is some pullback that has come in the USD JPY also. I think you can go long into the JPYINR above the level of 58.55. Keep a strict SL at 58.30 and target at 58.75. Go short into the USDINR around the level of 78.25, 78.20. Keep a very strict SL at 78.35. And for target, you can maintain the levels of 78.77 and 77.92 is something that we are looking. So 78 is the first target and 77.92 is the second target for the short on the USDINR. Along with that, I think you can also take risk with the option in USD-INR. So go for a long into USD-INR 78 put at 0.11. Keep strict SL. You can keep an SL of 0 and target at 0.25. So this strategy is for 17th June 2022. So these are a few strategies that you can work on at least in the coming 3 sessions.
Right. So these are strategies one should be watching out for as well. There are no more questions coming in. Thank you. Thank you, participants. Thank you, Ria, for joining me.
Thank you, Hiran.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel for in-depth interviews of India Inc. and press the bell icon so that you do not miss our updates.